Have you ever wondered how great civilizations of the past funded massive public projects without modern tax systems? How were universities, hospitals, libraries, and even roads and bridges built and maintained for centuries, often available for free to everyone? The answer lies in a remarkable and surprisingly sophisticated system of philanthropic trusts that has quietly shaped societies for over 1,000 years. This system is known as Waqf. It represents one of the most significant, yet often overlooked, contributions of Islamic civilization to social and economic history. Today, we're going to uncover the story of Waqf, a system where private wealth was voluntarily transformed into a perpetual public good. We'll explore its origins, its incredible impact during its golden age, the reasons for its decline, and its exciting modern comeback as a tool for 21st century development. So what exactly is Waqf? The word itself literally means to stop or to hold. In legal terms, it's the permanent dedication of a property by an individual, known as the waqif or donor, for a purpose considered charitable under Islamic law. The key here is the word permanent. Once a property is declared a waqf, its ownership is essentially transferred to God. It becomes inalienable, meaning it cannot be sold, gifted, or inherited. It's locked in for good. The benefits or income generated from that asset, called the usufruct, are then channeled towards the designated charitable cause forever. The spiritual idea behind Waqf is rooted in the core tenets of Islam, which strongly encourage generosity. While the Quran doesn't use the word waqf, it's filled with verses that praise the act of spending wealth for the sake of the community. Like the verse that says, "You will never attain righteousness until you spend from that which you love." This idea of giving something valuable for a greater good is the essence of Waqf. The direct precedent for the institution comes from the traditions of the Prophet Muhammad. The most famous example involves one of his closest companions, Umar ibn al-Khattab. Umar acquired a valuable piece of land and asked the Prophet ﷺ for advice on how to use it for a pious purpose. The Prophet's advice was simple and revolutionary. If you like, make the property inalienable and give the profit from it to charity. Umar did exactly that. He dedicated the land as a waqf, stipulating that it could never be sold or inherited, and its profits would be used to help the poor, relatives, travelers, and guests. This act became a foundational model for countless others. For a waqf to be valid, a few key conditions or pillars have to be met. First, you need the founder, the waqif, who must be a legally competent adult and the rightful owner of the asset. Second, you have the endowed property itself. This could be immovable property, like land and buildings, or even movable assets like cash, shares, or books, as long as the asset is durable and can generate benefits without being consumed. Third, you need clearly identified beneficiaries. These could be the public at large, a specific institution like a school, or even the founder's own family. And finally, there must be a clear and irrevocable declaration of intent to create the waqf. Once you say it, you can't take it back. To manage all this, an administrator called a mutawalli is appointed. Their job is to manage the waqf asset, collect its revenue, and make sure it gets to the intended beneficiaries, all according to the founder's original wishes laid out in a deed called a waqfiyya. From these simple beginnings, the institution of Waqf exploded. During the Umayyad, Abbasid, Mamluk, and Ottoman empires, it became the cornerstone of the entire socio-economic landscape, funding almost every aspect of public life. The economic impact was profound. Waqf acted as a massive engine for wealth redistribution, voluntarily channeling resources from the rich to public services and the less fortunate. It reduced economic inequality and fostered social cohesion. The sheer scale is hard to comprehend. At its peak, historians estimate that as much as 1/3 of all agricultural land in regions like Turkey, Egypt, and Syria was Waqf property. This created a gigantic, stable, and continuous source of funding for public goods, which significantly reduced the financial burden on the state. But the social contributions are where the story gets truly incredible. The revenues from these endowments built and sustained a vast network of public institutions. Let's start with education. Countless schools, known as madrasas, universities, and libraries were funded by Waqf. They promoted literacy and knowledge, and many were centers of great learning. The world-renowned Al-Azhar University in Cairo, one of the oldest operating universities on Earth, was originally established as a Waqf. Then there's healthcare. Hospitals or bimaristans were built and operated as AWQAF, providing free medical care to everyone, regardless of their background or religion. These weren't just basic clinics. They were often at the forefront of medical innovation for their time. What about public infrastructure? The construction and maintenance of roads, bridges, aqueducts, public fountains for clean water, and caravanserais, which were like roadside inns for travelers and traders, were frequently financed by Waqf. This facilitated trade, travel, and the growth of cities. And of course, religious institutions like mosques, the centers of community life, were almost entirely funded and maintained through these endowments. The system also supported a huge range of social welfare initiatives, from soup kitchens for the poor and orphanages to, believe it or not, shelters for stray animals. There were AWQAF, dedicated to providing food for pigeons or caring for sick cats. The Ottoman Empire is often considered the golden age of Waqf. The Ottomans developed a sophisticated administrative system to manage tens of thousands of these endowments. It's famously said that during the height of the Ottoman Empire, a person could be born in a Waqf house, sleep in a Waqf cradle, eat food grown on Waqf land, read Waqf books, be taught in a Waqf school, receive a salary from a Waqf administration, and when they died, be placed in a Waqf coffin and buried in a Waqf cemetery. The system permeated every stage of life, and it's crucial to note that women were major players in this system. For wealthy women, establishing a Waqf was a way to exert influence and leave a public legacy. In the Ottoman Empire, of the 30,000 documented Waqf certificates, over 300 belonged to institutions founded by women. Nearly 30% of the beautiful public fountains built in Istanbul during that era were registered under AWQAF belonging to women. It was also a way for them to secure their own assets and ensure their female relatives would be provided for. Now, not all Waqf was for the general public. Jurists made a distinction between two main types. The first is Waqf Khairi, or a public Waqf, which is dedicated to the public good from day one. Think schools, hospitals, and mosques. The second type is Waqf Ahli, or a family Waqf. Here, the founder designates their own family members and descendants as the primary beneficiaries. The income supports the family for generations. However, a key condition was that once the family line ended, the benefits had to revert to a public, charitable purpose. This type of Waqf was a clever tool for protecting family wealth from being broken up by inheritance laws or from being confiscated by the state. So, if this system was so powerful and so beneficial, where did it all go? The 19th and 20th centuries marked a period of steep decline, and the reasons are complex. A major factor was colonialism. European colonial powers often viewed the vast, autonomous Waqf system with suspicion. It represented a huge pool of wealth and social power that was outside of their direct control, so they sought to dismantle or control it. This happened in different ways. In some places, Waqf properties were simply confiscated. In others, Western legal frameworks were imposed that were incompatible with Islamic law. In British India, for example, a controversial 1894 ruling by the Privy Council effectively declared family AWQAF to be invalid. This caused a huge uproar and led to political mobilization, which eventually resulted in a new law in 1913 that restored their legality, but the damage to the institution's autonomy was done. The colonial era often eroded the flexibility of the Waqf system, leading to its stagnation. This trend of state control didn't stop with independence. Many newly formed nation-states in the Muslim world continued the process. In countries like Egypt, Syria, and Turkey, huge Waqf properties were nationalized and brought under the control of government ministries. The stated goal was often to improve efficiency and stop corruption, but the result was frequently the opposite. State control led to crippling bureaucracy, mismanagement, and the diversion of Waqf revenues away from their intended purposes. The vital personal link between the donor, the administrator, and the beneficiary was severed, and the spirit of voluntary community giving began to fade. Of course, internal factors like corruption and a lack of professional management in some AWQAF also contributed to the decline. But just as the story seemed to be ending, a new chapter began. In recent decades, there has been a global renaissance, a movement to revive and modernize the institution of Waqf. This comeback is driven by a renewed interest in Islamic finance and a search for sustainable, community-based solutions to today's biggest challenges, like poverty, lack of access to education, and healthcare. The key to this revival has been innovation. While traditional Waqf was all about land and buildings, modern jurists and economists have embraced more flexible and dynamic assets. The most important of these is the cash Waqf. This is where an individual endows cash, which is then invested in Sharia-compliant businesses or financial instruments. The profits from those investments are then used to fund charitable projects. Cash Waqf is revolutionary because it's incredibly flexible and, most importantly, it allows people with even modest means to participate. You don't need to be a wealthy landowner to create a perpetual charity. You can contribute a small amount that gets pooled with others to create a powerful engine for good. We're also seeing the rise of corporate Waqf, where company shares are endowed as a Waqf. This allows corporations to engage in sustainable philanthropy, dedicating a portion of their profits to social causes forever. Modern financial tools are also being integrated. For example, dormant Waqf lands can be used as the underlying asset for issuing sukuk, or Islamic bonds. The capital raised from these bonds can then be used to develop the land, build a school, a hospital, or a commercial center, generating even more revenue for charitable causes. Across the Muslim world, countries are reforming their laws and creating professional authorities to manage Waqf assets with transparency and accountability, focusing on maximizing their social and economic impact. The potential of a revitalized Waqf sector is enormous. It can play a crucial role in achieving the UN's Sustainable Development Goals by providing a sustainable, non-governmental source of funding for education, healthcare, poverty alleviation, and clean energy. It's a system that empowers communities from the bottom up. The history of Waqf is a powerful story of how faith-driven philanthropy can become a massive engine for social progress. For over 1,000 years, it funded civil society, provided essential services, and fostered a culture of giving. While it faced immense challenges in the modern era, its core principles of perpetual charity and community welfare are more relevant today than ever. As the Waqf system is being reimagined for the 21st century, its enduring legacy is being harnessed to address the pressing needs of our time. From the ancient date palm groves of Medina to the digital ledgers of modern Islamic finance, the spirit of Waqf continues to inspire a vision of a world where wealth is a trust and giving is a legacy that truly never ends.